Here's a memo to everybody who thinks that this is voter suppression. Showing an ID to vote is responsible.
Since 2008, at least 15 states have passed or tightened voter ID laws. Republicans insist these laws are protecting the nation from voter fraud. Turns out that one of the first criminal cases of voter fraud is being investigated this election season, and it is fraud committed by and for the Republican Party. Tonight, the Republican National Committee had to fire a consulting firm it paid millions of dollars to collect voter registration signatures after election officials in 6 Florida counties flagged hundreds of forms as potentially fraudulent. Local prosecutors are investigating the matter, and election officials say the cases could be turned over to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. Strategic Allied Consulting, the firm in question, also collected signatures for the Republican National Committee in Nevada, North Carolina, Colorado, and Virginia. It insists that the alleged fraud is the work of just a few bad apples. Joy Reid, you've been studying this Florida case, and there's a familiar character at the center of this whole thing.
Yeah, good old Nathan Spruill. He's familiar to me back in the days when I was actually working on the campaign side, because back in the 2004 election, his company, which is now called Lincoln Consulting, and that's how it appears on Mitt Romney's FEC filing forms, because he changed the name of it. What they were accused of in 2004 is sending out their guys to register people to vote. They come to you, they register you, they sign you up. If you check off register me as a Republican, your registration form goes right to into the office and you get registered.
They turn it in.
They turn it in and you are now registered.
And if I check Democrat?
Shredded.
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 Thrown away.
Exactly. And one employee actually told on them. And he was called a disgruntled employee, said that these were lies, but he literally said that what they were doing was they were separating the ballots into people who wanted to be registered as Democrats and people who wanted to be registered as Republicans. And Democrats were showing up to the polls in 2004 in Florida to find that they were not registered to vote.
Senator Patrick Leahy, chairman of the Judiciary Committee in the Senate, asked for an investigation of this guy years ago.
Yes. And it never happened. The Bush Justice Department never did anything about it. I mean, and it's worse than that. I mean, in Florida, there are several types of actual voter fraud that have been caught and so far pending prosecution, right? There are the falsification of signatures when you need to do ballot signatures. That's actually been caught. It's only been Republicans. There is this kind of fraud where you say you've registered somebody to vote, but you never really did. And there's the third kind, which is absentee ballot fraud, which was not legislated against by the Republican state legislature in Florida. They left it out, but that has actually happened. There are 2 lawsuits pending right now in Miami that could overturn the Miami-Dade mayor's race because people went to senior citizens and filled out their absentee ballots for them. So there is voter fraud, but it's just not in-person voter fraud.
New Republic's Tim Noah made the point that if Republicans believe, as Romney says, that 47% of the vote is locked in for the president, then ignoring them isn't enough.
Right.
You got to stop them.
You've got to stop them. This is a game of subtraction at this point. And I think the more desperate the Republicans get vis-a-vis the Romney campaign, the more likely we are to see sort of shenanigans try to take people off the rolls.
Joy Reid gets tonight's last word on voters.